Happy International Women's Day, everyone. I'm Susie McCord. I'm the president and CEO of the Women's Collection. Our mission at the Women's Collection is to deliver a female-focused, comprehensive financial literacy and investment program designed to empower and engage women who want financial freedom and independence. What woman doesn't want that? We do this by providing access to a wide variety of financial tools, resources, information, and more. If you haven't done so already, please check us out at thewomenscollection.ca. For those of you who are not familiar with International Women's Day, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about it before I kick the podcast off. So in 1911, 15,000 women in the US, in New York City actually, took to protesting terrible working conditions and exploitation. Women's Day went international after more than 1 million people turned out to rallies in Europe and around the world. And in 1975, the United Nations adopted International Women's Day on March 8th of every year. So you might be wondering why that matters. Well, today is a day to recognize and remind us that there are millions of women out there standing with us and that we're all facing the same battles. To celebrate International Women's Day today, I'm joined by two very special speakers, two dynamic women who have both made it their mission to support women in Canada and around the world in the hugely important role of enhancing financial literacy. So first and foremost, I'd like to welcome Tuula Jalasjaa. Tuula is the founder of the Women's Collection. She's a financial services and wealth management senior executive with extensive experience domestically and internationally, spanning over 25 years. Sorry, Tuula, I am giving away your trade secrets. But successfully managing various retail, commercial, corporate businesses for major Canadian financial institutions. Tuula pioneered and has led a number of advancement of women initiatives throughout her career. She's also really passionate about empowering women with their finances and financial futures, with a keen focus on increasing female literacy rates around the globe. This, of course, was the genesis of the Women's Collection. Please also join me in welcoming Sybil Verch. Sybil is an executive vice president, the head of private client solutions at Raymond James, which is the leading independent wealth management firm in Canada. Sybil oversees various divisions that support their advisors in delivering exceptional client experiences. She also oversees the firm's practice management offering, which provides training and coaching for their financial professionals. Sybil has also played an integral role in mentoring women in finance and is dedicated to increasing the number of female advisors in the industry. Her published book, which is called The Female Edge, is focused on changing the status quo when it comes to gender diversity in senior leadership roles. Sybil is also the executive producer and host of a finance television talk show, which is called The Wealthy Life, and it focuses on helping Canadians make smarter financial decisions. So Sybil, we're delighted you could join us on International Women's Day today. Thanks for making time in your busy schedule. And I'm really excited to kick today off. So Tuula, if you don't mind, I thought that I would start with asking you if you could quickly tell everyone a bit more about this year's International Women's Day theme, and then specifically how it ties back to financial literacy.
Absolutely, Susie, and what a pleasure to be here today. So the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Embrace Equity, which is really about creating a fair and equal world and how each one of us can actively support and embrace equity within our own sphere of influence. It focuses on all of us, not just women and men, that the entire world can challenge gender stereotypes, call out discrimination, draw attention to bias that we know exists, and also seek out inclusion. One important way I believe that the world can embrace equity is to better understand the impact of gender stereotypes on financial literacy, what and how we learn, or sometimes even don't learn, as it relates to our finances and our ability to achieve financial independence. So just for, that's just one example is financial independence. How do we achieve that? How do we understand what's maybe barriers as women? And as such, Sybil and I thought we would discuss how women can better understand our own biases in this podcast with respect to financial literacy and involvement with financial goal planning for our families. And of course, as women, we're always concerned about the next generation. So ultimately, how can we feel confident enough to ask the appropriate questions, to educate ourselves, and to sit at the table equally with our spouses or partners? Just as one example, what are the preconceived notions that women in society have about our role with respect to our involvement with our finances, and again, financial goal planning? When the Women's Collection was created, it was really based for me on the fundamental belief that educating and empowering women is the key, to economic growth, political stability, and social transformation. So the more women that can enhance their financial literacy, the better we can embrace equity and achieve these goals. So this is such a perfect topic in my mind for such an important occasion.
Perfect. Thanks, Tuula. Imagine being able to sit equally at the table with our spouses or partners or friends and be able to talk about our finances and financial situations. Such an important topic. Sybil, you also bring a really important perspective and learnings from what you've experienced in your current role and throughout your career. And I know that you cover a lot of these topics in your book, The Female Edge. I've been reading a lot about your book and that it helps you sort of get to the heart of what you really need to do, which in a nutshell is sort of deciding what you want, having confidence in your ability, and then actually enjoying the success that comes your way. So first and foremost, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. But maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how you hope to help us embrace equity and financial literacy on International Women's Day today.
Oh my gosh, there is so much to unpack here. My mind's going in a million different directions. But when I think about equality and equity, especially when it comes to finances, first of all, I want every human being to feel financially secure, financially independent. And I think when we go back in time, there's, traditional rules historically where typically the women still made a lot of the decisions on spending in the household, but it was typically the husband that would make the investment decisions and meet with the financial advisor. Well, I'm thrilled that that's no longer status quo and we are making progress there. And actually in my household, maybe not surprising, but it's the reverse. So my husband, I'm the one educating him and making him talk about finances so he can learn more, because I want him to be equally feeling independent and not lost about money. Really important to note that with women particularly, we tend to live longer than men. We know that's a fact. So therefore, when we're planning for financial security for life, we need to make sure we have more money that lasts longer.
Right.
Add to that women still typically take more time off than men to support the family, and whether it's raising children or even being the caretaker for parents or other family members, still there's a disproportionate amount of time spent by women versus men on those duties, which takes them away from work and impacts their earning years. It also impacts their career and promotional opportunities. So you add all this together and it puts women behind. So they don't advance, they don't make as much, they miss out on some earning years, yet they live longer and need more money. So we got to fix that. And it all starts with financial literacy and making it more, comfortable and acceptable to talk about. I mean, come on, girls, when we get together, what do we talk about? We may talk about wine, we may talk about, whatever's going on. But do we talk about money? We don't. Sometimes, you know what? It's even more common to talk about sex than it is about money. Go figure. So how do we make it as fun to talk about money as it is about sex? I don't know. I'm open to ideas on that. And it's going to start here right now.
Love it. Well, I think, first of all, that you and I need to be hanging out a little bit more, Sybil, because
maybe with some wine.
Yeah, I'm clearly not having as interesting discussions as you are. So next time you're in town, you got to let me know. Thank you. So what you said resonates with me so much. But I'm wondering, Tuula, why do you think women struggle so much to talk about our financial situations, to give each other support and advice we need?
Well, I would say first and foremost, we're really hard on ourselves, and women don't want to sound stupid or be judged that they don't know something, even though they're not sure they should know it. And I always talk about this, profusely, that you shouldn't have to know all the financial nomenclature, but we're really tough on ourselves in that regard. And then second, I would say a lot of women are embarrassed to, maybe they haven't had the same, financial success or progress financially like they should have. And one example I give is how many women that I've known for such a long time that know I'm in this field, and, they're in their 40s or even sometimes early 50s, that finally acknowledge that they haven't started investing because they're embarrassed. They don't want anyone to know that because they think like, everyone's like, why? Well, you haven't? Like, where's your financial nest egg? So they kind of avoid it. And I would say in a nutshell that we're our own worst enemy. So yeah, we could talk about sex. We could say we like something different than someone else. We can, talk about all these other things. And even death. There's a great statistic, Susie, you know this. I love to reference this statistic all the time. And it's that, over 60% of women would rather talk about their own death than their finances. So we'll talk about death, wine, sex, but we can't say, hey, what are you doing for your mortgage? Or what do you think's a good rate? Or how did you start investing, and have that conversation? So there's certainly a huge taboo that women just feel scared by that whole topic. And it's about our own fears of thinking, I should know this, versus you're not a professional. No, you shouldn't. And you need to be educated just like everyone else.
So true, Tuula. And just, I know that statistic, you and I have talked about this with respect to easier to talk about death than it is to talk about our finances. And yet I think I find myself impacted or affected by just that traditional upbringing as well, and not talking about this stuff. So do you see this dynamic changing, Sybil? Like, how are we going to go about tackling this long history of not talking about money and financials? We're notoriously private and conservative. So how do we change this?
Well, I think we need to make it a little bit more fun and a little bit more interesting. So I think some of the biases that come into play, or misperceptions, misunderstandings, I think, men and women equally don't want to be thought of as stupid, or they don't know, or they asked a stupid question. I think historically, maybe there's a perception out there, whether it's real or not, that men maybe portray a little bit more confidence. Actually, there's some studies to back that. So they won't let on what they don't know. And it's also almost cool in like the old school boys cliquey clubs where, on the golf course or in the locker room, they'll talk about like, hey, I bought this stock. I, made 5 times my money. And, I think and when you look at the profession, historically was a lot of male advisors, or going back to stockbroker days. Women just weren't interested in that. I mean, some were, but it just wasn't very exciting. What people really want to talk about is, will I be okay? That's the one question every single person has, is, will I be okay? Now, that means different things to different people, but you don't have to go it alone. And let's talk about the fun part of finance. Let's talk about, what do you want to achieve with the money you have? What are your dreams and your goals? When do you want to retire? What does retirement look like? Do you want to send Johnny to university? Do you want to buy a vacation property in Hawaii? Do you need a new vehicle? Do you want to upgrade from a condo to a house? Do you want to be a real estate owner? Like, talk about the things that money does. That will stimulate the conversation. That, I think, is something actionable that people can do right away. Once you set those goals of the things that you want your money to do for you, then you got to go, well, how could I afford that? Like, where do I get that money from? And that's where you don't have to go it alone. Now, sometimes us women, we tend to do it ourselves, and we maybe sometimes don't want to ask for help. Ask for help. Like, even just the fantastic work and the resources through the Women's Collection, the resources through financial advisors and other professionals. I mean, there's so many great resources out there, the Wealthy Life, and use them. Meet with a professional, set those goals, and then you'll learn something new and fun that will get back to the heart of what the money means to you and what you're really trying to accomplish. Now, all of a sudden, you got something maybe more interesting to talk about with your friends. And then it makes it a little bit more acceptable. You don't have to show them your T4. I mean, that's going into private territory. But you could talk things like, what percentage of your income are you saving? Or how are you investing? Women are more conservative typically, which is not good because over time that negatively impacts the growth of the money. And then there's some women out there, I know my sister is one of them, we laugh about it all the time. She just has her head in the sand. She's terrified because she doesn't understand it. She doesn't want to learn. She's got a blocker on, and she's a bad spender. Like she actually had to cut up her credit cards because she knew like she was just a bad spender. So those were some financial behaviors that she feels a bit, she can talk openly about it now because she's changed those behaviors, but for a while she wouldn't, so she would just ignore it. So I know there's a lot there, but thinking about what's getting in our way, are we feeling ashamed? Are we talking about the right things? And then just start talking about it.
You know, I think there were so many things that you said that resonated with me there. I mean, one of them was, I think when women think about talking about their financials, they do feel like, well, I don't want to disclose how much I make. That T4 comment you made, it doesn't need to be part of the conversation. But also just that sort of recognizing that we do have inadequacies with our financial knowledge. And so Tuula, I'm just wondering, like, what's the best way to increase our financial literacy? So how can we get more confident in getting actively involved with the financial goal planning process?
So actually, I love what Sybil said. I mean, it really starts with understanding what your goals are. So I think for any woman to sit down, and I mean, there's lots of templates. We have them at the Women's Collection, but there are a lot available how to even just have a high level. Here's what I want. Here's what I want to achieve. Here's where I want, my money to go. And I think that's a really good starting point because that gives you power of knowing your goals, and then everything else can align. I also think it's important to take a look at everything you have financial. Look at, write down your mortgage. What do you have? What credit cards do you use? What do you already have in investments? And those are things you can talk about. Back to both of your points too. We don't need to share our T4s and say, well, this is how much I've got put away, but you can say, what mortgage rate are you paying? Should I be doing this? Or how did you get started? Or what credit card do you use? And do you carry a balance? And so we can just start asking for advice in small ways without really giving away, our financial situation. But at the end of the day, we have to educate ourselves. That's why there's tools out there to start understanding, what are the risks with certain credit cards in terms of, what interest rate are you paying, or just trying to understand each of them in small bites and being able to have those as topics. But at the end of the day, it should be a safe conversation. There should be nothing wrong with asking someone, how did you get started saving or investing and not be, it doesn't matter what age you are, it's never too late. So I think just to take ownership of that, but really understand, think about what your goals are, put pen to paper, write them down. And then, as Sybil mentioned too, professional advice, I always recommend that. There's some really good professionals out there that can help you align that and then help you identify maybe some areas where you could improve your knowledge.
That's great, Tuula. It was interesting as you were saying that. I was sitting there thinking, I myself, even someone who's, fairly proficient with financial literacy and financial services, have never had a discussion about what mortgage rate I'm paying and should it be variable or fixed rate. I think I've had it in my head with myself numerous times, but it's interesting. And it's kind of scary and sad that I myself had not been comfortable having this conversation. But that one of the things you did mention too was about financial advisors and the role that they can play. And Sybil, I think you mentioned earlier, just talking a little bit more about what are some of the potential biases that women may have with their financial advisors? Like, what might this look like? And what should women look for in an advisor? Like, how do we find what we're looking for?
I know, because you don't know what you don't know. And I think a big part of finding an advisor is trust. And how do you know who to trust? And when I say trust, you want to work with someone that understands your needs, is always going to put your interests first, and really is invested in helping you achieve the goals that you set out, and really helps you even before that set the goals that you want to achieve. People don't need to be financial experts. Like, there's financial experts to help you with that. But financial literacy to me is the foundation work. It's understanding the basics so that you know enough to ask good questions. You're going to meet with an advisor, a financial professional, financial planner, and you want to ask the questions and make sure that you feel comfortable with the answers. So you need to know just a little bit, and then you'll know if you can trust that person or not. Some of the biases I think people walk into with is, first of all, I think, well, I can't afford to even see a financial advisor. Maybe I don't have enough money. Well, that may not be the case. You know, there's financial advice available for every level of net worth, every stage of investor. So you just need to know where to go. If you're small and starting out, you may start at your bank. If you're just getting going, you might start with even investing through a robo platform to at least put some money aside and get some of the financial literacy through other programs, other resources that are out there. Meet with a financial advisor at a wealth company and ask like what their minimums are, and you might be fine. So there's lots of choices out there. The other bias I think women have is they don't understand the different investment options per se. And so, I don't want stocks might be a common response from a lot of investors. Well, do you even know what a stock is? Probably not. So you're making these assumptions on investments that you know nothing about. So just get educated and then see where that goes.
Makes so much sense. And it just, when you'd mentioned that about, I don't want stocks, we know that women are notoriously too conservative, and yet history also proven that we outperform men when it comes to investing. In fact, I think it's somewhere between 0.5% and 1% that our portfolios typically outperform those of men. So in fact, I think women are much better at investing than we give ourselves credit for.
And one other thing, Susie, I just like when I say stocks, I think it's important to share here, but if you, let's pick a large Canadian company, Royal Bank of Canada. So does anyone think Royal Bank of Canada is going to go bankrupt? Does anyone think that's a risky company to invest in? Probably not. I'm not giving a recommendation on this, just to be clear. Disclaimer. But, if you invest in a company that is large, sustainable, pays consistent dividends, and is going to be, or you believe is going to be around for many years to come, I don't feel that is a risky investment. Now, if I bought shares in Royal Bank and I knew that I needed to pull that money out in 3 months to put a down payment on a house, that would be risky. Don't do that. But if I knew that, geez, I want to invest in some good Canadian or international blue chip stocks because I need that for my retirement 30 years down the road, you're going to make more there than you're going to make on GICs. So it's again, having an advisor show you the history, show you the future, show you the volatility, walk you through pros and cons of different investments. That's a good advisor. Will teach you what you need to know as the investor to make an informed decision. So you're not just fully trusting and let them do everything. You're asking the questions so you can make an informed decision.
So true. And of course, there's so many other investment vehicles like mutual funds or ETFs that can divert, invest in a basket of securities and you're diversified. There's so many different ways to approach investing. And to both your points, it's really about educating yourselves and asking the questions and learning a little bit more. And Tuula, I know that you've got 2 daughters. I've actually had the good fortune of meeting both of them. So what are some of the tips that you give them when it comes to enhancing their own financial literacy and where to start? And assuming you have already.
Yes, I think there are a lot of ways you can expose your children to financial literacy. One of the things I did when my kids were younger to give them exposure to investing was build them a small portfolio. And it really wasn't about, how much they made off it, but for them to start relating a stock and what that means to be owned part of a company and what happens to that company in the market or that sector. So I bought stocks such as Lionsgate, which is a film company that produced Hunger Games, which my kids were very fanatical about. Aritzia, they loved Aritzia clothing and retail. Actually, Nike was another one I had in there because they were all big on the Nike shoes. And then, of course, I threw in a bank stock. Each one had RBC and one had CIBC, just so they could start to see the difference between how banks perform. So I would relate them to, here's an article in the newspaper, retail sales are slumping. That's why your Aritzia stock price went down and the value of what you own in that company has gone down. Or in the terms of Lionsgate, they had 2 movies that bombed. And all of a sudden that stock's gone down, and they go, well, they start to understand and correlate that with what's happening in the marketplace. And then, certainly with the bank stocks, I wanted to have a bank stock in there so they could understand that even though the value didn't go up, they got income from dividends from those, as Sybil said, blue chip stock. So trying to understand a little bit about the correlation of what you own. And again, having a diversified portfolio. It was only 3 stocks, but again, you have a bank stock, you have something that's retail, and again, in the entertainment industry. So that was a simple way of giving them some exposure to how stock portfolios work. And it definitely was successful in that regard. Some of the other things I did, I can tell you one even recently. I was traveling and I asked my daughter to go get groceries for the week. I'd been gone for a bit. And she came back and she said, Mom, oh my gosh, the bill was $450. How do people survive on this? And we actually spent some time going through the receipt that she had and what she could have done that could have been more economical. I said, okay, I know you love cherries, but cherries are really expensive this time of year. And so we took the time to kind of, go through the forensics on the bill to try to understand how she could have saved money. And one other example is when my daughter first went to university, and it's, you have a limit on their credit card. And that's all they get. I'm going to pay $750 a month to you every month, and your credit card bill, you have a limit of $750. So you have to pay it off in full, or that's it. And they start to realize how much goes on the card and how quickly they can build up a balance on that. So again, I have tons of different tips I've used over the years with my girls, but those would be some of the key ones I would like to share.
Tuula, that's so smart. And well, I think first of all that you owe me a thank you for single-handedly supporting you and your family through the Aritzia stock. Really, some really smart, simple ideas that anyone can use. So thank you. Sybil, I know in your book, The Female Edge, you talk a lot about the inherent strengths of women, sort of what we bring to the workplace, our empathy, our conservatism, our intuition, collaboration, desire to help others. So in a nutshell, like how can we put those to work for us?
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can, but be authentic and embrace those traits first of all. Don't try to be someone you're not. And too often we see this, especially in industry or in career paths, where if a woman's working in a male-dominated industry like I am, which is slowly changing, which is great. But too often, I think women try to be someone they're not to be heard. And when you think about those traits that we have, it makes other people feel good. The planning side, there's a lot of great male planners as well, but it comes more naturally to women. And the planning element when it comes to money and finances is so important. You plan your grocery list. I love Tuula. I loved your exercise you went through with your daughter about the cherries. If they're too expensive, maybe buy oranges instead. Like find something else to buy. But the planning, you plan your grocery list, you plan your week, you plan your schedule, plan your money. So, just sit down with a planner if you need a little bit of extra help, but plan that out. The caring and the compassionate side is also key. It's, ties in with the goal setting, but when you care about everyone around you, including yourself, and actually I'm going to say that there, care for yourself first. Because too often us women, we put ourselves last. We're so busy caring about everybody else that we forget about ourselves, and we're no good to anyone else if we don't take care of ourselves. But that caring for others actually then draws other people in that are wanting to help you in return. And so by being givers, let's also be open to accepting that help when it comes the other way. Especially if you've got a couple of young kids running around and at home and you've got a career and you're trying to juggle it all. Well, guess what? You can't. Like, we do need help, whether it's hiring a nanny, daycare, you get the grandparents to come in and help watch the kids. Maybe you have a hybrid work environment so that you can shift the days you work, but you need help. You need to sort it out. Susie, one thing I did want to say, though, is, the reason I wrote this book in the first place was because I was getting frustrated with hearing story after story after story of women blaming men for getting in the way. And that really ties back to International Women's Day and the equity and the equality. Yeah, we've had some challenges that we've had to overcome. I mean, can you imagine? It wasn't that long ago, women weren't even allowed to vote. There's parts of the world women aren't even allowed to go to school or drive cars. I mean, this is just crazy. So yes, we've had to overcome a lot of that. But if the people watching or listening to this are in North America, this is our time. We have opportunities to seize right now. Companies and organizations are looking for more diversity. They're looking for women. If you have a man and a woman both applying for a position and both are fairly equal, who do you think is going to get the job today versus who would have got the job 50 years ago? I'm not even going to answer that question because I think you all know. So the point being, hallelujah. But the point being, how do you then use that to your advantage? First of all, you got to put your hand up. You got to make it known that you want it, and then go seize it. And rather than blaming the obstacles, why don't we turn those obstacles into opportunities? And that's what I want to encourage people to do.
Thank you, Sybil. I just, when you were talking about women need to put themselves first, it can be such an uncomfortable place for us because it's just something that we don't do, and we don't do easily, and we don't do readily. And I know that I had to put myself out of my own comfort zone when it came to putting myself first or asking for help. And it's still something, as I think it will be a lifelong struggle for me. But I think it's really important for women to, stretch yourself and put yourself out of your comfort zone. And like you said, Tuula, and you mentioned, ask the questions. Even if you feel like you sound stupid, you're probably not. And even if it is a stupid question, it doesn't matter because it's important to you and it's a question that you have in your mind. So really,
and your confidence will build as you get out of your comfort zone and ask questions that maybe you were too shy to ask before, and you get an answer. Now you've got the knowledge, but that builds confidence because it takes courage to get outside of our comfort zone.
Great. And Susie, you've heard me tell this story so many times where when I've done focus groups with women in various markets around the globe, and, I'll throw out an artist's name and I will make something up and say, do you know who that is? And everyone's like, no, I don't listen to that kind of music, or I can name an artist or whatever. And then when I throw out a financial term, that's any kind of financial term, does everyone know what that is? And they're looking at each other to say, should I know that? And then I have to say, of course, you're not a financial advisor. Of course, you're not supposed to know that. I gave you some detailed, nomenclature there. So again, it's getting over, you're not a financial advisor. You didn't train in this industry. And one thing I always like to leave people with, because I think it's important, people will say to me, you're a CFA, you've been in the industry so long, you must manage your own money. And I say, no, I don't. I don't have time. I couldn't do what I'm doing on all other fronts right now. And I leave it to the professionals that do this all day long. And they're there watching and adhering to what my goals are and making me feel financially secure and safe, knowing that what I embarked on in terms of my financial plan is being executed on and monitored by someone that has the time to do that. So again, I don't need to be an expert in every single stock and what's going on each day. I don't want to be. So everyone has to kind of get over that. Women need to get over that fact that you're not a financial analyst. You're not a financial advisor. So it's okay not to know, and ask the questions, and no one's going to think you're stupid, ever.
Hey, Tuula, do you know how wealthy people manage their money?
Through other people.
They don't.
They don't manage their own. Yes, 100%. So again,
some women may have the time or inclination to do so, which is great. Some people love, the numbers and the research and the analytics. And if you're so inclined, great.
Be an
but
advisor then. We're hiring. If you
There
love
you
that
go.
stuff,
Go
call
work for
me.
Raymond James. I love it. But
So
no, you know
true.
what? Even to know a few things, again, you're not going to be able to do it justice. You don't know how to deep dive into companies and all these things that people have trained for years. So rely
Or
on the
time.
experts.
You don't have time.
No,
Because remember,
agreed.
you're a woman and you're juggling career,
Yeah.
family. You're going to spend some time for yourself. You're doing all these things. You don't have time to do it all.
But no, to
And
ask those questions, to say to an advisor, why am I invested in that? Why do you have me in these kind of stocks? Why is my allocation this or that, right? Those are smart questions, and have them explain, but let them do, the more granular work in terms of how your portfolio is structured and executed on.
such great thoughts and great discussions, ladies. I could go on for hours. I did want to wrap it up soon, but I wondered if, again, on the theme of International Women's Day and embracing equity, if you had any last tips. Sybil, I don't know, like, did you, around teaching financial literacy, particularly, do you have any last suggestions or anything with respect to that before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one thing I do want to take the opportunity to share with everyone today is lead by example. And I'm, all of us are big supporters of other women. And so I am going to encourage those that are interested, don't buy this book today. We'll actually buy this book today. International Women's Day in the week after, I will donate $15 from every book sold. This is on Amazon.ca or Amazon.com. I will donate it to the YWCA. It's going to support a new building unit to house single mothers so that they can get the programming and support they need to be independent and successful and turn obstacles into opportunities. But here's the extra bonus for people is there is a little chapter in here on money. And at the end of that chapter, there's a barcode and a promo to get a free annual membership to the Wealthy Life, where we've got all kinds of how-to videos. Should you put your money into an RSP or a TFSA? Susie, one of the videos is, should you do a fixed rate or a variable rate mortgage? So these short little videos, you can just watch and learn at your own pace, and it's free. So I'll leave people with that as an extra resource that will help you, but it's also, I don't make a dime on it, not one penny. This is all going to charity.
Thank you.
Women's charity.
And I wish I would have had that video a few months ago when I actually went against my banker's advice. I'm not really quite sure why. I think I had a bit of a gut feel, but certainly could have used a video on variable versus fixed rate at the time. Tuula, did you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, back to the theme on International Women's Day, embrace equity. Let's put ourselves at the table and be equal when it comes to financial conversations about our families, our future goals. We don't need to, the stats show that women will take care of budgeting and that kind of thing. But as Sybil mentioned, when it comes to this part of it, the financial investing and all of that, we tend to put that off to somebody else. Let's make ourselves equal partners in those decisions. Let's educate ourselves so we can be, again, informed and an equal partner at the table when it comes to our very important financial decisions for ourselves, our families, and our futures.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, Sybil, did you want to add something?
No, I was just saying perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
That's well said, Tuula.
Thank you.
And thank you. And Tuula, thank you for the opportunity to be part of the Women's Collection. Interestingly, Sybil, have spent a lot of my professional life also volunteering with the marginalized around the world. So that really resonated when you talked about what you're doing with some of the proceeds of the Female Edge. But I have certainly in the last 6 months to a year become really passionate about financial literacy, more passionate than I probably thought that I would be, because I think I have been such a poster child of falling into a traditional role of a woman and not having these discussions and not being comfortable having these discussions. And so you guys both shared some really valuable insights today about how women can embrace equity by enhancing their financial literacy. And I just really want to sort of close with, financial literacy is not a one and done exercise. I think we all need to remember that. It's something that we need to try to make time to do on a regular basis. And whether that's by reading articles, watching podcasts, attending courses, or simply talking to our spouses, friends, colleagues, more about our financial challenges. So on International Women's Day this year, I challenge each of you to try to put an hour aside each week to enhance your financial literacy, and I will do the same. And if you haven't done so already, please join our community at thewomenscollection.ca. We do have a regular newsletter. We cover a wide variety of topics that are, anything that you may or may not even thought about around just, starting your estate plan, or how do I care for my elderly parents, and what is debt? What's inflation? I hear people, but what really is it, and how does it impact me, and why should I care? And also Sybil show, The Wealthy Life, which airs on CHEK, Global Television nationally. So many practical, sessions and tips on everyday life and how to enhance your financial literacy and how to better be present in our financial decision making and financial goal setting. So
and all at a no cost investment in all of these things. So there's no excuse not to take advantage of them.
So true. Thank you. So meantime, happy International Women's Day, everyone.
International Women's Day.
Tuula,
happy International
Sybil,
Women's Day.
Thank you so much. And get out there, embrace equity, everyone. Have a great day.
Be well. Awesome.
Go women.
Thanks, Susie.